Tim, thanks for joining me and congratulations on your elevation to CEO of Aguia Resources. Now, you've been with the company for a couple of years as Brazil country manager, but some people may not be aware of your track record prior to your time at Aguia, where you were instrumental as South American general manager in helping transform Karoon Energy into what is now $1 billion corporation. So, to start, what learnings did you take from that experience and how do they apply to your tenure at Aguia?
Well, I've been in Brazil permanently, Brazil and Peru permanently since 2010. Before that, I was based in Australia, but travelling frequently to the region. Since that point in time, I've learned and understand all the cultural aspects of working in Brazil and South America. I was responsible for our initial entry into Brazil in the 2007 licensing round, obviously with the exploration geology team back at Karoon at the time. And then we built a very strong local team. One thing we learned was you have to use the expertise of the locals and work with the Brazilian system and regulations, which works quite well. You just have to, some things like in Australia, have to be patient, other things move quite swiftly and do everything that is asked of you by the agencies. So in that time, basically, Karoon had never operated. I think we may have operated some seismic back in 2004 in the Browse Basin. And after that, we passed the operatorship to ConocoPhillips in the Browse. However, in Brazil and Peru, we operated 2D seismic, 3D seismic. We drilled 6 or 7 wells under my leadership, having 2 oil discoveries. And as we had success, we built a team up of highly experienced Brazilians or Peruvians, ground up. So that experience, not only recognising key people, but also understanding key strengths of the local workforce, were really the key to our success, and being the interface between head office and in Australia and the local office here facilitates communication, understanding of the cultural differences and slight business differences between the two. Since joining Aguia in 2024, we have overcame an injunction from the public ministry here in Brazil, and then subsequently we built a very highly experienced local team in Caçapava do Sul, based on a long history of mining in limestone and gold and copper in the region, and my expertise to identify strong, intelligent, hardworking local people, I think, is one of the keys to why we were successful at Karoon and why we'll be successful here at Aguia.
Thanks, Tim. So Brazil is the world's largest importer of phosphate. So how does Aguia's Brazilian operations plan to reduce reliance on imported phosphate and thereby compete with large global players from the likes of Russia and Morocco?
Our initial phase in the shallow saprolite, we hope to get up to 300,000 tonnes per annum. 300,000 tonnes per annum replicates 8% of the market share within 300 kilometres radius of the plant in Caçapava. So it's a small amount over the total need for the state. Particularly in the southern part of the state, you have a high acidity soil. So phosphate is essential with the mixture of limestone to ensure the pH balance is correct. And also we've identified 3 client groups because our product is a natural product. There's no chemical process. So we don't have toxic aluminiums, etc. in our product. So we're very appealing to the organic markets. We're currently working with compost groups to mix run-of-the-mine ore and also processed phosphate with the compost. Initial results are showing early fermentation of the compost and significant results. Following the initial test with the compost, we'll obviously run tests with agronomists in different soil environments in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. Uruguay is changing the laws to eliminate chemical-based fertilizers. I'm not sure the timing of the process, but we're registering our product in Uruguay at the moment and our business in Uruguay. Uruguay is only 180 kilometres from the Tres Estradas mine site. And we believe that the organic market, obviously, that end product's more expensive, but we believe our product will be a premium to other fertilizer products available. And then we have the traditional farming cooperatives and the farming wholesalers who typically sell to small to medium scale farmers. We believe we've got a diverse range of outputs and we're a drop in the pond of the needs of the state of Rio Grande do Sul and into Uruguay and into Paraguay. So we're well placed and we'll reduce a small amount of imports, but not a huge amount due to the size of the market.
Thanks, Tim. So in your view, in terms of the outlook, how is the phosphate market shaping up heading into 2026?
Well, we believe there's a high demand. From our intelligence that we receive from our subscriptions here in Brazil, it appears though that Asia is pre-purchasing a significant amount of phosphate for their needs. The Brazilian government is also pushing hard for agro-business to invest more in soil management. If you look at Brazil versus other markets, we're lagging behind in terms of performance per hectare, crop performance. So our understanding is there'll be high demand for phosphate moving into 2026, and particularly here in Brazil, the industry, or the agricultural industry, needs to improve its performance on a per hectare basis according to the Ministry of Agriculture's goals. And as I mentioned earlier, we're really looking to take our product into the organic market in Uruguay because of the changes to regulation. And in Paraguay, they also have the world's largest organic sugar production, etc., because in Brazil, most of the sugar production is for ethanol. We feel that they're interesting markets for us to expand into, as we feel organic fertilizers will drive a higher price.
Now, given the significant resource at Tres Estradas, production at the project is seen as strategic. So how do you intend to build scale within this business?
We have the Tres Estradas site, which we have 6 million tonnes of the saprolite shallow ore. We're initially taking that to the Caçapava processing facility, which we have on a 10-year plus 10-year lease. That facility has a capacity of about 150,000 tonnes annually. Our intention is to expand that to 300,000 tonnes annually once we build our client base and market recognition. Hopefully throughout next year we can start preparing, going through the approval process internally with our board for FID. And we have the environmental license, installation license for greenfields at the mine site at Tres Estradas for 300,000 tonnes as well. And we have two areas. We have Mato Grande in Passafaia. Mato Grande is 2 kilometres from that processing facility in Caçapava do Sul, and Passafaia is 11 kilometres from the processing facility in Caçapava do Sul. We've been drilling on those two areas with shallow auger holes for the past 18 months. Mato Grande was for area retention, but we believe we have a good resource, which we plan to make public in second quarter of next year. And additionally, we've drilled 2,000 metres of holes up to 20 metres in the Passafaia tenements. Again, our plan is to have an announcement in the second quarter of next year with a resource. And those two areas will basically assume the production. At the processing facility, we estimate it's about $15 Australian saving in logistical costs. We're looking to monetize those two deposits subject achieving our resource expectations and going to 27, 28, and therefore greenfield development Tres Estradas for the balance of ore at that site around 29. The benefit of the Tres Estradas site is we have closer access to the south of the state, which has high acidity in the soils, and also the Uruguay market, which I've mentioned several times, which internally we're very excited about. It's also a US dollar-based sale, which is exciting for us. There's a lot of growth in the short term, and obviously the hard rock, lower grade, larger capex, you'd be looking at studies for early 2030s for a significant 32% P2O5, mining more or less 2 million tonne a year and having a 300,000 tonne product at a 32% grade after the chemical process.
And just finally, Tim, to broaden the lens a little, while Aguia is clearly building strong momentum in Brazil, the Santa Barbara Gold Project in Colombia has faced its share of headwinds. What strategic measures are you putting in place to reposition the project and unlock its underlying value?
Since I came on board as CEO 7 or 8 days ago, we've worked to cut further the team in Colombia. I think 2 weeks ago, they had a headcount of about 128 people. Today, as of 1st of December, we have a headcount of 28. Our idea is to, in the coming days, look at a small scale, almost return to a test facility, so small scale mining and batch production. We're also in the process of negotiating with a local processor in Colombia, a reputable local processor, who also has facilities in Dubai and other countries, to complete some test process for 50 tonnes of our stockpile at the mine to understand where the gaps are in our processing facility. In addition, we've sent in a highly qualified mining engineer from Canada. He arrived into Santa Barbara last Thursday, and he's been going through the mining procedures, which he's very comfortable with. He said the grade is there. The issue is gaps in the processing that was installed by the previous management. And we're working through that gap analysis to understand what is required to fill those gaps. And we should have information ready in the coming weeks with a strategic plan to produce ore to cover overheads and then analyse and commence starting a further drilling campaign and basically preparing a re-project development for late next year's going to the following year. Once we're cash flow positive in Brazil, we've done the work to ensure that the project can be implemented correctly and as per the conditions of the mine and what's missing in the facility. The last point, I reiterate, the grades we've announced in the drilling campaigns and also the grades we're accounting on site, what we expect, and we've just got to resolve the processing issues on the plant and implement a correct plan going forward.
Thanks, Tim. Appreciate the update. Congratulations on the new role and all the best.
Thank you, Alex. Bye-bye.